Okay, so we are here to do some calculations regarding percents, and we want to figure out percents of amounts. Now, there are tons of different ways to do this. You can do it by hand, you can do it mentally, and you can do it by calculator, to name just a few approaches that you could use. I'm going to show you a very simple way. I think it's very simple. It's one that you can do sometimes entirely mentally. And hopefully you'll find it easy as well. It's a method that I'm going to call chunking. Now, again, there are lots of different names for this approach, so whatever you want to use is fine by me. I know in the UK system they like to use the term unitary method, but really all it is breaking down the original percent amount and then figuring out what each of those bits is out of the total. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. Before I go any further, just a bit of a shout out here. You can see there's a web address there, www.learnersgrid.com. So that's my website. So please go take a look. There's loads of fun and useful resources if you're a student or a teacher. And it's got material and resources there across all the subjects. And guess what? It is all for free. So let's get on with this tutorial and work out what 75% of 34 is. Okay, one other important piece of information you've always got to bear in mind when you're working with percentages, always at the back of your mind, is that percentage means per 100 or out of 100. And if you always remember that, it's hard to go too wrong because you're always dealing with either 100 or multiples of 100. So it is relatively simple. Okay, let's have a look at this one. If I want to chunk this up, I can see 75%. So an easy way to chunk that up is going to be 50%, isn't it? Half of 100% is 50, and I can do half. Half of 34 is 17. Easy. 25% and 50% make 75, and 50% is double 25%. So again, with 17, I need to halve it. Halving 17 is kind of hard. If I was to halve 16, I would get 8, and I would have 1 left over. Half of 1 is a half, and so 8.5 is 25% of 34. So 50% plus 25%, that gives us our 75% right there. Excellent. And here we have 17 plus 8.5. So 7 plus 8 is 15. That makes 25, and don't forget the 0.5. So 75% of 34 is, in fact, 25.5. There is another way that you could have a look at it, and it would still work just as well. You could decide, okay, I'm just going to find 10%. So 10% of 34, the decimal point in any whole number is at the end, right? And if I was to divide by 10 to get me 10%, because 100%, right, is 34, right? If I want 10%, I've divided 100 by 10, so that gives me that. So divide by 10, I just move the decimal point this way. So 10% is 3.4, and then all I would need to do is multiply 3.4 by 10, by 7, sorry, because I need 7 tens to get to 70. So that would get me that. So if I multiply that by 7, let's do that. 7 times 4, that's 28, carry the 2. 7 times 3 is 21, plus the 2 is 23. There's one decimal place in the question, so there has to be one in the answer. Right, so this gives me 70%. And if I want 5%, I know that all it is half of 10%. So half of 10%, which is 5%, right? Let me just make that a bit tidier, that's a bit rough there. Okay, so 5% equals half of 3.1, right? And we already know that half of 34 is 17, so it's 1.7. So 1.7, that's the 5%, right? Add them up, 15, this here is a 5, this here is a 2, so that would be the answer, and it's the same as this one over here. So that's another way of getting there. There is one more way that you could get there, so kind of making things super ridiculous in a way. If 100% is equal to 34, right? 1%, 10% is equal to 3.4. 1% is obviously, I move it one more time, is 0.34. So all I need to do is multiply 0.34 by 75, because 1% is 0.34, 75 of them is that. So if you're good at doing this, you can go about it that way as well. And you could go, I might as well quickly do it. 5 times 4 is 20. That's 15, 16, 17. Hold the place, don't need that anymore. 7 times 4 is 28. Carry the 2, 21, 22, 23. Okay, add them up. There's 2 decimal places in the question, 2 in the answer, so the answer is 25.5, exactly what we had elsewhere.